Today we're going to be talking about Cars 3, 47 Meters Down, and the Book of Henry, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt, is fearful that the world will someday be taken over by sharks on land. Hey.
I truly am. That's terrifying. Don't tease me like that, Joel.
I think there is a realistic threat of that happening one day here, Matt.
And I am here, everybody, with Joel wishes every movie could be like 47 Meters Down, Cunningham.
Well, I'm more excited about that than I am about one of the other films that we're going to be talking about today.
Come on.
I'm more likely to accept that.
Come on.
I guess I would say,
It's better than land sharks. That's like saying that you'd prefer to have flying scorpions rather than just regular scorpions.
Between flying scorpions and land sharks, I don't know which one is worse or better in that situation.
They're equally terrifying.
I will say this, probably more threatening if it's a land shark than it is a giant scorpion, but I don't know. They don't really have opposable thumbs, so you could pretty much just shut the door.
Hey, do you remember Moana? They did that in Moana.
I do.
He's like a land shark for a little bit. He's got
true.
People legs and shark torso.
The only thing that's worse than a land shark is a land shark with a chainsaw. I feel like it's probably slightly.
Now we're just going into
we're
crazy
getting really
territory.
crazy. Yeah, so welcome to The Real Review, everybody. So this is what we do here on The Real Review. Matt and I talk about sharks and flying scorpions.
We love it.
Yeah, so, Matt, actually, for a brief synopsis, kind of the show how it breaks down is Matt is sort of our fan reviewer, as you will.
Sure.
They say, kind of gives good emotionally charged reviews of different films that he has a chance to see. And I'm more of the critical critic, I guess is the best way of putting it, the negative Nancy, if you will, of the group. That
negative Ned.
Yeah, that likes to break things down really over-the-toply critical. So that's how the show goes, and we put that whole thing together and give you what we consider to be a real honest perspective and review on the films we get to see.
Put a pretty bow on it for you.
Yeah, there we go. And we ship it to you through FedEx.
Yep.
Sponsored by FedEx.
Or
I'm just kidding.
Podcasting services.
There you go. Very awesome. So why don't you tell our listeners here, just really at the beginning, a few different ways you can get connected with us.
You know, you all can get connected with us a number of different ways, but one of them would be our website, realreviewmedia.com. And you can actually connect to our social media universe through there as well, over at Twitter and Instagram at Real Review Media, and then also on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/realreviewmedia. And we're always posting on there, keeping things up to date.
We try.
Yeah, trying to make things interesting and lively for you. So check in with us there. Yeah. And then also send us an email with questions if you think a review or a perspective that we have on a movie is just out there too much for you, you disagree with, or you agree with, let us know. Tell us about it. Send us an email.
Yes, we would love to hear from you. That would be amazing.
Yes.
And we always like getting comments and feedback on our podcast, so definitely feel free to send any of that over. So, yeah. Awesome. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be talking about 3 films today, 2 of which I had a chance to see, 1 of which you had a chance to see, correct, Matt?
Yes.
So, I'm going to be reviewing Cars 3 as well as the Book of Henry, and then you're going to be talking about 47 Meters Down, the shark film.
The Shark Fest.
Yes, the Shark Fest. So, why don't we kick things off then, get things into gear.
Oh,
hey.
Let's put these tires to the road.
Yeah, and kick it off, starting off with Cars 3. So this film is obviously the third in the Cars franchise made by Pixar. This film's synopsis is Lightning McQueen sets out to prove to a new generation of racers that he's still the best car in the world. He's the best around. Right, Matt?
Perfect.
Yep. It's directed by Brian Fee, and it stars a number of different voice actors. Owen Wilson, again, returns as Lightning McQueen. You have Cristela Alonso, who does the voice of Cruz, who's kind of his trainer, motivational coach, if you will. More of a motivational coach at the beginning of the film than a trainer. You have Chris Cooper, who is the voice of Smokey. Nathan Fillion, who I was actually surprised to see and happy to see in this, plays Sterling, who's sort of his manager, and then Larry the Cable Guy again as Mater, and Armie Hammer, who is the antagonist of the story, plays Jackson Storm. And then you have a huge, returning cast again of most of the characters from the prior to mostly the first film.
Yeah.
So I will say this, we talked about this in the Coming Soon episode with Cars. I wasn't super excited for this. I've never been a huge, big fan of the Pixar Cars, series.
Same here. Yeah.
It's never really intrigued me all that much, and I think the biggest reason for it that I mentioned is that with most of the Pixar films, they're much more relatable to me because they generally tend to take place within a human environment, within a human world.
Right.
And they have laws and rules that are, cohesive to their film, but it also fits within a human realm and a human environment. Whereas with this film, everything is completely Cars. There is nothing that, except they sometimes will do like not hits, but like teases about other films within the Pixar thing. And there's these weird, I don't know if you've ever gotten a chance to read all the different stories about how maybe all the Pixar films connect on the timeline of the Pixar film. Yeah. But there's all these different like ideas that, maybe this takes place in some weird future, where like a meteor hits or something and the cars come to life or something like that. Like there's all these different weird theories about it. I tend to feel like they don't really necessarily tie in that way. I feel like this film series is in itself, it's just an idea that they had and they kind of developed it through. So I will say for this film, a couple good things kind of at the start. Animation, again, Pixar always, for the most part at least, has done really well with their animation style. And even with this film, there was just a couple shots in particular with lighting and the way that they played the animated lighting off of different things. I mean, even the way that the light would reflect off of the headlights of certain cars, and it just looks so very real. Mm-hmm. And then there's a scene, where Owen Wilson is talking, or Lightning McQueen is talking to Cruz, and it's kind of like this almost Twilight-esque type shot, but there's light coming out of the back of one of the cars, and the way it like bounced off her, and I was just like, wow, that almost looks photorealistic,
right?
And they've done a really good job with that and consistently upping the game every single time. I feel like they've kind of maybe plateaued a little bit, just because how much further can you go?
Pixar has just been the best when it comes to environments and structures.
Yeah.
Obviously they haven't done like anything like completely real as far as like people or like animals for the most part, but with structures and stuff like that, absolutely. Even the trailers for Cars 3 is like, wow, it's pretty impressive.
Right. I mean, some of the racing shots that they did, even with like the little bits of rubber, bouncing off the road, and it really screamed like, wow, visually pretty awesome. I'd say that they've done other films like The Good Dinosaur that probably had overall a better animation look as far as like photorealism goes. I didn't like that film animation style-wise because it felt like everything was super photorealistic except for the characters,
which were very cartoony,
right, and it felt like, oh, we just need to sell products, so we have to make these cartoony. I
felt the same way.
Yeah, so this one, it felt like it was a better balance, than specifically The Good Dinosaur, of being somewhat photorealistic, but also being a little bit cartoony. It didn't feel like those were really, juxtaposed from each other. Music is fine. Sound design is good and pretty great at times. I mean, everything sounds the way that you would think that it would sound in the certain environments and with the racing. So I had no complaints there. Voice acting wise, it wasn't, I would say there wasn't really too much that was needed to be there voice acting wise. I mean, it wasn't crazy stuff going on. It was pretty much, it felt like everybody did a good job. It didn't feel like they did an amazing job with the voice acting. It would be hard to request more of them this far into the series. I think they're just, I didn't have a huge expectation in that regard, I guess.
Yeah.
There was a couple, the one funny thing about the voice acting though is, I don't know if you've seen that clip of Owen Wilson where the person went through and went to every film that he's been in and took just the clips of him going, wow.
Really?
Wow, yeah. And he says wow like 3 times in this movie. It's his thing. Everybody has like the Tom Cruise running. I forget, what's his name does all the peeing every time.
What?
Tom Hanks. In every one of his movies, he pretty much pees in every one of his movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
just like certain actors. No, yeah. I mean, there's Arnold always, so it's like there's caricatures and things that are in each of the, so that's kind of Owen Wilson's things. He always goes, wow. And there's, so that was definitely a part of it. It did feel like there wasn't an intensity to a lot of the language and the dialogue, and everything felt very straightforward and simple with this film, where it felt like with the first film, the stakes were a little bit higher. And this kind of goes into then where I would say the film was lacking. it's a kids film. They make this film in particular and these films by Pixar to really primarily talk to a child audience. And one of the things that Pixar, though, has done so well in the past is, yes, they're kid films, but they deal with and delve into thematic elements that are of a deeper nature, meaning, purpose, existence, death, survival, loss, depression. I mean, when you talk about Up, the first, 10 minutes of Up with, finding out what's happening there, it can be really heartfelt and really touching. This one didn't really get to any heights of that level. And I think the biggest reason for that is everything felt very staged. It felt very much like, okay, I know exactly where this is going from A to B to C to D. And you kind of, they flagged everything and you could see exactly where it was going. And there was like maybe one minor twist that you could kind of talk about in regard to, I don't want to talk about too many spoilers here.
Jackson Storm is actually Lightning McQueen's dad.
Yes. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Yes. No, Cruise, who's his trainer.
Tom?
Yes, Tom Cruise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was confused.
A lot of running in this movie, yeah. No, Tom Cruise Ramirez, who's voice acted by this girl, Cristela Alonso. She is kind of his trainer at the beginning because the whole point of the film is that he's kind of at an age as a car, which I guess cars have ages.
It's like Rocky V or whatever.
Yeah, where he's kind of reaching retirement and he should retire and he should look to get out of the race because he's, reached his peak and there's other newer racers with better tech and faster abilities that are kind of coming into it. And it's an interesting concept because it delves into, what do you do when you've kind of reached your peak or your zenith and your height, and then how do you retire out of that when you're a person that's like really driven to be successful at a certain thing? And that's something that I, would think of in the future and would kind of move towards that. I think a child audience probably really doesn't care too much about that, to be completely honest.
So all the kids in the audience are like, man, I've really peaked and this movie's really getting me through
exactly.
this time.
Man, those 10s were pretty much the peak of my life, peak of my existence. No, I mean, it's like, that's what they delve into, though, and that's what they really talk about thematically. And it wasn't that interesting. And that was kind of the big problem with it is they talk about, him retiring and getting out of this racing world, and he's kind of cheated, or made fun of by the other cars and attacked by the sportscasters and stuff for being this, antiquated model and all this other stuff. And as well, it's difficult as well. And this is just as an adult. I think kids probably wouldn't maybe think about this too much, but it's just difficult as an adult because it's like, well, why doesn't he just get a new engine? And they talk about that a little bit because he kind of gets like this upgraded paint job. But then later on, they're like, oh, no, you don't need that. But it's like, well, what's wrong with getting a replacement part that would make him ride faster or race fast? You know what I mean? They almost treat it like drugs. Like these people are taking like bad things or doing bad things in order to make them more successful. But then later on in the script, you realize that it's really not that bad because they don't really have a reason to feel like they're bad. It's just that he's old and they're young and. So I don't know. They never really explain it. It's just very ambiguous and unclear as to like what the real issue with any of the younger racers is beyond just you're supposed to like Lightning McQueen and you're supposed to want to see him be successful because he's Lightning McQueen and he's not being successful, and so you should want him to succeed. And that's just never really good. The stakes weren't there.
Gotcha.
That's what I would really say. And so. You finally get to like the last quarter of the movie and they've flagged this whole relationship that he's had with Cruz kind of the whole way through, that she's this wannabe racer girl that kind of missed her shot, and he's talking about like how he was trained and Lightning was trained by these other guys, and how it was other people were trained and how they had to grow and get out of racing and how that impacts them. And it's very obvious where they're going. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it necessarily, but it pretty much goes in the direction of like, well, what does success really mean? Does success mean that you personally win, or does it mean that you can help other people become successful in their own right once you're at a place that you can do that?
Like Cool Runnings, like they don't actually win, but they carry their bobsled across the finish line.
Exactly. Okay. It's a win for morals and for doing the right thing by the right people.
And Jamaica.
Yeah, and I mean, it in a way I get it, but I also didn't go to the movie wanting to see any. Not that I really cared, but in a small facet, I wanted to only really see Lightning win. I didn't really care about anybody else seeing him win. So it kind of felt like a bit of a like staged, like, well, we got to do something with him, and he can't just always win. So we've got to change this up so it's like a different car and different. So yeah, I'm probably giving a little too much away there.
It's all good.
But yeah, I mean the last kind of 20 minutes or so of the movie, it's like it's kind of slowly getting to this point where you're gonna almost at a point reach to the screen, and not that you could, but like hit the car and be like, you're an idiot. Like, that this is where it's going. I mean, like all the signs are saying this, and you're still being stupid and saying this. And so it wasn't super effectively done. I think if they had, I think the biggest problem with this type of situation, and they do this a lot, is that so to use the Rocky example, right?
Yep.
Rocky crud, I forget which one it was.
19. 36.
Yeah. But it's always a battle of not just the external, the fighter, the other fighter that he has to overcome, whether it's the German guy, the Russian guy. Was he? I think he's Russian. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Russian guy, or it's some American fighter. But it's also a battle of the internal. It's a battle of, can I overcome my own insecurities, my own fears and misgivings, and push through and power through to be able to become successful?
Yeah.
And that was more at the forefront. It was more of most of the Rocky movie, even the first Rocky movie, he doesn't win.
Yeah.
But it's more of just him saying, I could win. I can do this. I can stand toe to toe with the best in the world and overcome being beat down.
Like Creed even.
Right, exactly. And so with this movie, it was trying to play like a happy line between him having an antagonist in Jackson Storm, but also have an internal struggle that he had to overcome. But then the internal struggle just led him to helping another person, in a way, another car, become successful. So it's not like a 1-to-1 ratio. It's very disconnected. It's like, so he needs to become successful so that in his own mindset, he can help another car, if you will, become successful. So it makes the struggle less interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I'm explaining that well enough.
Yeah, I think you got it.
So overall, I was just kind of bored with it because I'm like, maybe if it was like a direct correlation of him versus Jackson Storm and trying to overcome his own his own internal kind of mindsets to be strong enough,
right,
that would have been fine. But it's like, I don't want you to overcome your own internal mindsets just so that way you can say, well, yeah, now I've overcome them, but it's not about me. Now somebody else has to be successful. And that probably sounds a little selfish. Maybe it's better for kids that they learn that kind of moral, but it just didn't make for good filmmaking in this film.
All right.
So that's kind of all I would say about Cars 3.
Okay.
I think like on a humor level, it was okay. There was nothing anywhere that maybe really laugh out loud. There was a couple kind of chuckle moments. There wasn't anything unexpected about it. It was kind of flat, I would say, as far as, what happens and when happens where. And the funniest part, I think actually the best part of the film for me was in the middle, and they do this like crazy 8 race.
Okay.
And that was kind of like the funniest, best part. And there's some pretty ridiculous stuff that happens because he accidentally goes into Destruction Derby.
Oh, nice.
And so that's kind of fun and it's kind of playful, but it's not. That's like the best. That's like the most action.
Oh, they show some of that in the trailer, yeah.
Yeah, and there's some funny stuff that happens there, and that kind of plays through. But that's like the best part of the entire movie. Other than that, I was just like, okay.
All right. I wasn't expecting that much out of it.
I mean, they need to finish off the series. I'm interested in a small way to see if they like try and continue it with different cars.
They're going to do something because I feel like they've invested way too much in their stuff at California Adventure, Disneyland, all that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, if anything, this is great from a marketing standpoint because it allows them to add, like 5 or 6 more cars to their arsenal of cars. So, more toys and stuff. So, okay, so on a scale rating, 1 to 100, I'm going to give this movie, and it's tough to do to Pixar, but I'm going to give this one a C+.
Okay.
I'm going to give it about a 70, kind of 7 range, 78. It's tough to do because, again, there is a lot of good things to it as far as the animation. Voice acting's okay, but there just wasn't anything that really, like, made me interested. I don't want to see this again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, like, anybody, go watch it. It's great. It's really enjoyable. The humor's not really there. There's no real suspense. So, yeah.
All right, cool, man.
Any thoughts, questions, comments?
That's it. I just kind of want to get your... That's exactly kind of what I thought it was going to be. And hey, there it is.
Yeah. I'm hoping for better things from Pixar. I mean, they've kind of they've done really good things in the past, and now they've kind of gotten into this weird mode where their films are just okay. I know they're doing another Toy Story film, I think, and they're doing another Incredibles film. And one of the things
the Incredibles one is way overdue. They should have done that forever ago.
I know. My fear is that it's past. It's like past due in a sense.
Never.
So, but
it's like Pixar's X-Men. Come on.
It is, yeah. So awesome. Well, with that, then we're going to move on to another film, Matt, where you're going to have a chance to talk a lot more.
Yeah. Hey, so swim on over here with me, Joel.
I'm floating.
We're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about 47 meters down. Now, this is about two sisters vacationing in Mexico who are trapped in a shark cage at the bottom of the ocean. With less than an hour of oxygen left and great white sharks circling nearby, they must fight to survive. This is directed by Johannes Roberts and stars Mandy Moore, Claire Holt, Chris Johnson, Yanni Gilman, Matthew Modine as well. Well, Joel, we got a chance to talk about this last week on our Coming Soon a little bit.
Boy, did we.
Now, here's
I'm
the thing.
I'm going to try and keep most of my thoughts to myself.
Okay,
here.
So listen, this is kind of what I was saying. This movie is not a good movie. Okay?
Okay.
All right? I did find enjoyment in it.
Okay.
It's not a good movie.
Yeah.
But I did find enjoyment of it. Mainly because this movie does one thing effectively, and that's prey on my fear of the ocean.
Yes.
And the terrifying creatures that could potentially be in the ocean.
Right. Yeah, that one day we'll be overtaken by sharks.
Right. Land sharks.
Land sharks, yes. They will learn to breathe air and walk.
The setup for this movie is atrocious.
Okay.
It's two sisters, like I was saying. So it's Claire Holt and Mandy Moore's character, and they're like they happen to be, just on the beach somewhere, and they're like, she just broke up with her boyfriend or whatever, and she's like trying to prove that she is a fun person to be around. So she ends up, like, her sister kind of talks her into doing this daring thing, like this shark dive, to do something exciting to kind of like be like, see, your boyfriend's wrong. He thinks you're boring. You're not boring. You're doing a shark diving, and that. The acting is subpar for the most part, even for Mandy Moore, who I think is really good, especially in This Is Us.
Yeah.
It's not as good in this.
Yeah.
And then the dialogue is really bad too, especially in the beginning. It doesn't matter as much later on in the movie because it's limited because of just the situation that they're in. But all of the ocean stuff, I will say this, just the stuff that I liked about it, it does a great job at just preying on that fear of people's like sharks.
If you're scared of sharks, it does.
Yes, there's legit a line in the movie where she's like swimming over this like she's like on the ground, like she's like swimming close to the ground, and like in between the rocks, so like if a shark comes, like they won't get her or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And then she gets to the end, it's like a cliff, and you can't see down the bottom. But she's got to go to this place across the thing, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I swim in open water?" And so she starts swimming out there, and she's like, I don't like this. I can't see anything that's below me. I can't see anything around me. Yeah. And I'm like, that's how I feel when I'm in the ocean. Like, I don't
feel like
it.
You.
Like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And the whole time, in the part leading up, and it was cheesy in the way that it was presented in the movie. Mandy Moore was kind of freaking out, like, I don't want to do this. Her sister was kind of peer pressuring her into this shark dive.
Yeah, because she wants to be fun.
And the whole time, Mandy Moore's like, I don't like this. This is not a good idea. I really don't want to do this. This is not a good idea. And I felt that. That. I'm like, I kind of feel you a little bit on this, Mandy Moore. That's not. I'm on your side here.
Yeah.
I will say this: the sharks looked really great.
Yeah.
I
was going to ask how the CG was.
CG. It was better. The CG for the most part, I thought was better in this movie than it was in The Shallows. I like The Shallows better as a film as a whole.
Yeah.
But the CG as a whole was better in this movie.
Yeah. How was, I don't want to interrupt your flow here.
Go for it.
How was, the one thing I would feel like they would just fail at miserably is creating a realistic set of scenarios that would kind of lead into a lot of the action set pieces.
Sure.
I mean, do you feel like they did a decent job doing that? Or was it kind of just like, well, now we need this thing to happen, or now we want something scary to happen, so we're going to make this take place, or that take place?
It was...
was it stupidly handled as far as the plot developments and the action set pieces?
Yeah, well, for some reason, the way that they end up at the very bottom in the shark cage at the bottom of the ocean floor, at that part.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that would take a lot of force for that to happen.
Okay.
And
So
because
the initial,
it's not like it's not like a cable snaps like it shows in the trailer. Like you think it's just a cable snap and they're at the bottom of the ocean,
right?
And you're like, oh, that's not how it happens. I don't want to spoil it, but it's just kind of like, wow, it would take an incredible amount of force for how they got down there to get down there.
Yeah.
So it was probably wasn't well thought out scientifically or rationale, you know.
Yeah.
But it's kind of easily like kind of overlooked because you're like, great, now we're in the middle of the ocean, and you kind of just feel the sense of dread that they have.
Yeah.
And there were some cool shots with the sharks, some surprises. There was one ripoff from Pitch Black that was like, it's in the trailer too. The one thing I will say about this is the trailer gives away, and this is a negative thing, the trailer gives away almost every single time that a shark like either eats somebody or like almost eats somebody. Like you see almost every one of those, like if you watch a trailer, the shark's mouth going, "Arr, arr, arr,"
it shows everybody that's going to get eaten, sort of.
Yeah. And there aren't any other ones on, you know, in addition to that. And it kind of gives a lot of that stuff away. Even the one like surprising, like as you would say, the money shot of this like that I'm saying is kind of a Pitch Black ripoff.
Yeah.
That scene is in the trailer too. So it's a scene in the trailer where they're like in the dark and she lights a torch and there's like 3 sharks like about to like eat them.
Yeah.
And then it freaks them out and then they swim away. And I was just like, they gave that part away in the trailer. So I don't know what they were thinking with that. It's not a good movie as a whole. I didn't like the ending. There's not really any closure. You don't really get a sense of going on. And some of the twists are very, very telegraphed.
Yeah.
They say something and you're like, why would they say that? Oh, they're probably going to use that as a plot device later on.
Yeah.
And then they also like state obvious things a lot, and they do that to set up things also down the road. And yeah, I don't know, it was interesting. I felt like this movie was something that Johannes was like, hey, I just saw this movie called The Shallows, and I remember Jaws 2, not Jaws 2, but the first Jaws, and I kind of want to make a shark movie. And yeah, let's do this. This movie was supposed to go to VOD directly,
right.
And then it got picked up. I think it's been in development for a really long time because I think it was before Mandy Moore even got This Is Us, and so it's been sitting around for a while. It probably could have gone straight to VOD and would have been all right, but I think it was fun in the theater. So whenever you go to scary movies in the theater, it's not scary, but whenever there's jump scares, there's people. It's really, really fun to see how people react. Like there was a person next to me, like we're sitting in the front row where you can like kind of prop your feet up on these bars, you know. Yeah. And well, it's not the very front because that'd be terrible, but it's like in the midsection where there's this bar, and you can put your feet up in the front. And there's a person like 3 seats over from me. And like this shark comes out of nowhere and you just see their feet flail in the air. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Kind of like the time where, remember when we went to go see, it was Wonder Woman and, wait, was it you and me and the popcorn person?
I don't remember. I'm not sure if I recall right at the moment.
It was either you and me or me and Phil. I don't remember. I see movies really late at night. And it's hard for me to remember details.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there and something happened, and
because we did see Wonder Woman together,
right.
So, yeah,
and something
but you
happened.
Again.
There's this guy like 2 rows in front of us, and something happened, and his arms go up, and his popcorn flies.
Oh,
everywhere.
I remember that. Yeah. Because he was sitting like 2 rows from the front almost.
Yeah, I don't know what.
I think he tripped though.
He was sitting down though.
Yeah, but he was. I think it sounded like he was walking back.
Oh, okay.
And he just tripped. Yeah,
totally unrelated.
I know what you're saying because I saw what was that recent one that came out that had a lot of jump scares.
What did you see?
Sorry, the Mummy. The Mummy.
Oh,
yeah. And there was a lady. We talked about this.
Yeah.
There was a lady, a large lady sitting next to me. And she just kept going, "Oh my dear Lord!" And just every time something would jump out, it was pretty sad but funny.
Yeah. So, 47 Meters Down wasn't great. It wasn't even really a good film, but it was effective in kind of making me still afraid of going in the ocean.
Yeah. All right.
So I'll give it that. But if you want to go see it, if you like shark movies, is that something that you think would be thrilling? If that's scary to you, go check it out. Maybe it's a fun thing in the theater. Other than that, just wait for it to come out. You'll probably see it on Netflix in a month and a half.
All right.
And if I had to rate this thing,
yes,
1 to 100.
Yep.
I'd probably give it a 68.
Okay.
Yeah. 68. Not quite into that 70 territory, but I'd probably give it a 68. I think that would be a fair, reasonable thing because...
Yeah. When do you think they'll release the 48 meters down?
Ooh, that's a great title.
It's gonna happen. I'm just telling you right now.
Oh
This
my
one does
gosh.
even moderately well in theaters.
I don't think it's doing well, though.
It probably isn't.
It came out on a week where every other movie came out.
Yeah, you got every other movie coming out, and it wasn't very good to begin with.
Wonder Woman only dropped like 30%.
Yeah,
in
we'll
its
have to wait
third or
and see
fourth
how
week.
it does, because if it does really well, and if it does go to VOD and
Yeah.
does really well there on the Netflix and kind of the Redbox
Yeah.
market and circuit, then they might make a. I would think that they would most likely go direct. That one might go directly to VOD.
But the next shark movie we're looking forward to is Meg with Jason Statham fighting a 40-foot
You use that term
gigantic
"weir" very loosely.
shark.
I don't know if I'm looking
I'm
forward to that
speaking
one
for
at all.
both of us, guys. Meg
Yeah.
coming soon to a theater near
I'm
you.
looking forward to Jason Statham taking on sharks.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to that.
That'll be fun. I feel like it'll be
That's
fun.
the only aspect of it that I'm looking
Anyways.
forward to. Yes.
Anyway, so that's it for 47 meters down.
Yes. All right. So let's move on to our final film we're going to be talking about here. And this one, I'm actually glad that we're putting at the end because Matt might need to run out of the room as I talk about this film. The film we're talking about is Book of Henry. And the reason I'm saying that is this film is very contentious, is what I would say. It's getting very polar opposite, in a way, type reviews on
So there's no middle
Tomato-
ground.
on Rotten Tomatoes. Correct. This has got a 24%, average critic review, but the audience score is at 71%.
I feel like that's where I'll be at.
Yes. And you might be very much, but the reason for it, and I will say this hands down is very much the reason for it, has to do with the plot.
Okay.
Which you hate having spoiled for you, and that's what I'm saying. You might need to run out of the room as I'm talking about this, and I'm going to do my best.
Do your best
to
and then
tiptoe
if I
around
have
this.
to leave to whatever, I will leave. But
Yeah.
start with what you liked.
I will start with what I liked. Yes, the one thing that I definitely think was great about this film was the cinematography. I think they did a very effective and good job of portraying things strongly and well in each of the shots. And there were some pretty creative type shots that they did at times, especially with some of the more intense moments and some of the more kind of dramatic moments. It wasn't amazing, so it's not like going to blow anybody out of the water. I don't think it's going to win any awards for it. But you had so let me actually read the description and the synopsis for this real quick. So with instructions from her genius son's carefully crafted notebook, a single mother sets out to rescue a young girl from the hands of her abusive stepfather. It stars a few different people: Naomi Watts as Susan Carpenter, Jaden Lieber here, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, as Henry Carpenter, and Jacob Tremblay as Peter Carpenter. So they're kind of the mother and two sons. You have Sarah Silverman as Naomi Watts' friend Sheila, Dean Norris, who everybody knows from Breaking Bad fame, who
Hank.
stars as Glenn. He's kind of the main antagonist of sorts in the film. And then you have Maddie Ziegler, who's Christina, who's the next door neighbor girl, who I haven't seen anything before, and honestly she didn't impress me too much. She was kind of very flat and monotone, although the role did kind of call for that. I think she got cast more so because of things and events that happened later on in the film, specifically a talent that she needs to have for a talent show that takes place. I feel like that was maybe more of it, more of why she got cast in that role, potentially.
Gotcha.
Naomi Watts does a good job here. I think she does a decent acting job. So back to the cinematography, though. This partnered up Colin Trevorrow.
Like Tomorrow. Yep. That's how I remember.
With John Schwartzman again, and they've worked together on projects before, specifically Jurassic World. So Colin Trevorrow is the director, and then you have John Schwartzman as the cinematographer. And I think they've had a lot of experience together. They've worked together, and I think they do decent visuals. One thing I would say about Jurassic World, they did a good job with the visual style. I really liked the cinematography in Jurassic World. Most of my problem came down to the script and the actual story, which is the same with this film, which I won't get into yet. But so some other aspects that I like, I think they did good with the editing. Everything felt well-paced and well-structured editing-wise. I'm trying to think what else. Sound-wise, decent. Like audio, sounds, music, decent. I think they did a pretty good job with that. Acting-wise, it definitely required a lot out of a few of the kids, and specifically Naomi Watts. And I think she did a good job in this. I wouldn't say that it's I mean, she might get nominated for something potentially, but I wouldn't say that it's I don't know. I wouldn't personally feel like she deserves to win for this, even though she did a good, effective job. She plays like this mother who's kind of this child in a way,
Right.
that has motherly instincts, but also is a child at the same time, and then relies a lot on her son Henry to kind of do the day-to-day type stuff around the house, including finances and all this other stuff. And so that's part of the good and the bad stuff. I would also say, so I think Jaden did a decent job. I think their youngest son, Jacob, did a good job. The two roles that I really felt like were just flat, and it might have been the directing, but really didn't do a very good job to me, were actually Dean Norris, who's the main antagonist guy. He was completely flat to me almost the entire movie. And you've seen him in Breaking Bad. You've seen how like intense and funny and quirky and crazy. And he can do serious dramatic tension, later on in the series, but he can also be over the top, ridiculous kind of jerk, guy.
Right.
And he really doesn't do much for me in this film, as well as his daughter in the film, Christina, who's played by the girl Maddie, who I mentioned. So, and that might just be more of a directing thing. They play very flat characters. They didn't have much of an arc. They kind of just existed to be there as catalyst for the events that kind of took place with Naomi Watts' character, as well as Jaden, who plays Henry. So, getting into the bad stuff.
Hey,
yes.
How is Jacob Tremblay, though? Because I think he's awesome.
He's good.
Okay,
he did a really
cool.
good job. I would say, as far as one of the kid actors, I should mention, he did a really good job.
Okay,
I was very believable in the role. I mean, he played kind of this dorky kid that kind of gets beat up, but then he had some really serious kind of sad crying moments, and he does a really good job with those. I think he's a kid that I would be on the lookout for.
Cool.
For future roles.
He was incredible in Room. He was incredible.
I didn't see Room, but he did a really good job here. I think one of the best actors in the film. Him and Naomi Watts, probably the two best actors of the film.
Cool.
So, to get into the bads, and we're not going to spend too much more time on this as well because we're coming up at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about some of the bads. Maybe just plug your ears and go la 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 la. No,
well, are you going to give away plot stuff like right now?
Well, no. Here, I'll try to do it in a way that it doesn't give anything away, but I might give away some like shifts.
Okay.
This film is. This is what I would say about the film. It's two films.
Watch the trailer, and I think you could determine that from the trailer.
Yes, but it's very much being projected as one particular type of film. I, in seeing the trailer, made a joke where it almost felt like Home Alone, but with like dramatic family tension. Are you like holding your headphones here?
I'm getting ready to take the headphones off. Yes.
I'll warn you. You're just like, oh, my son of a... Yeah, you throw them at me, so I'll shut up.
Because I really want to see this movie.
Yeah, okay. So there's two sides to the film. And I think if they had focused on one side or the other with the film and done a lot less with... Because it needed both parts of the plot in order to kind of progress the way that it did.
Okay.
But it very distinctly had almost a action, suspense, slight edge to it and tone to it of like this intrigue and mystery and suspense. But then the other side, it had this really dark, deep family, not deep necessarily, but just really dark family drama, dealing with, sadness and mourning and depression. And those two things, I think this is why maybe it gets such good ratings with viewers versus critics. I think on a critical level, when I look at those two elements, they're handled decently well on their own. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's why I'm saying, like, if they had just focused on one element or the other, then it would have been okay. But it really felt like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too. It really, really felt like they were trying to go for this, like, really, like, intense craziness with the family stuff, but then also try and make that somehow relate into the realities and the reasons for why the events of the second part of the film take place. And it didn't fit. And I think, like, and not to say like, well, critics look at things more correctly, but I think if you don't like want to go in and like analyze it, it does give you a very strong emotional presence and a very intense kind of in your face, like, this is what it is. This is how you should feel type of projection of film, but it doesn't do that well in my mind.
Sure.
It felt like they could have been much simpler and much more realistic with the progression. I think this film was more about it felt like what they were trying to do is they were trying to make it like this lady played by Naomi Watts struggling with depression and sadness and working through things, but is really not a good person in my mind in the film.
Sure.
And learning how to overcome that and be a better person. But it goes to such ridiculous heights of like, you're going there? Like, really? That's what's going to happen? That's going to be the thing? That it actually ended up getting me upset and like really angry because it really felt like they were just trying to oversell what they didn't want it to just be kind of like this simple little drama type thing. They wanted to go as dark and as crazy and as deep almost as they possibly could.
Wow.
But try and still reel it in enough to make it like, okay, it's not like hard R. It's just
figured it out.
Okay.
I figured out the twist.
Did you?
The Book of Henry is the sequel to the Book of Eli.
That is exactly it.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. Da da da. No, not at all.
Denzel, the ghost of Denzel is there.
No, it felt like they were trying, like I said, have their cake and eat too. It felt like they were trying to make this a PG-13 movie.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had solidly just gone for an R-rated film of one sort, of just making it a dark kind of,
I keep thinking of Disturbia. Did you ever see that?
It's like Disturbia in a way meets Manchester by the Sea is how I would combine them.
Okay.
And it doesn't work because both of the films are distinctly different tones and feels and purposes and reasons.
Right.
And they exist for completely different realities. And I just ended up getting really ticked off, mainly about the progression of the story, but also with Naomi Watts' character, because I felt like I didn't like her character anywhere throughout the film. She is a very bad person in my mind.
Kind of like Tom Cruise in The Mummy.
Yeah, and because if they'd gone for more of like a Disturbia type thing, then they really needed to build up the antagonist throughout the film, Glenn, their next door neighbor, this guy Dean, but he ends up being this really flat, kind of simple guy that's more there to almost be a catalyst for the craziness of Susan's character. And I was like, give him a little more badness. And he's doing bad things. Don't get me wrong. He's definitely doing bad things. He's being abusive towards his next door, but you don't even like. That's just portrayed. It's just like said that it's happened. And you don't even really see the impacts of that beyond people just being upset.
Gotcha.
And that's where I'm saying like, oh, they went for PG-13. But then there's other areas where I'm like, why are you going this dark? Why are you going this intense and somber? I think if they had made the whole like story of her trying to figure out this book and go through this whole process kind of over the course of the movie, kind of played throughout, then it would have been a lot more interesting to me. There would have been a lot more intrigue there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of leave it at that.
Okay.
And I think I did a good job.
I thought you did a good job for not spoiling. I don't feel like I've been spoiled on anything yet, so good job.
Okay, because there's a ton
so stop talking.
Well, I'm just shut up right here. No, I got to give final thoughts. But
okay, final thoughts.
What I would say to people as far as like approaching this movie, don't look at it as like, try to look at, like I'm saying, if you've seen Manchester by the Sea and you've seen Disturbia, try to think of it as more of a Manchester by the Sea with elements of Disturbia that are kind of there to move the plot and to do different and accomplish different things. I would also, so...
Disturbia by the Sea.
It's Disturbia by the Sea. Dun, dun, dun. So that's kind of final thoughts on that. Rating for this, this is really tough for me to say because it's not like I'm like torn, but as far as like I said, editing, cinematography, acting is okay. I would give it probably a pretty solid B+, maybe A kind of range as far as like visually and music design, everything, and sound design and everything. But because of the plot,
how far does it bring it down, Joel?
It brings it down so much to me. I would actually give this one probably like a D. So it's probably going to be close to like a 64.
Would it have been better if there were sharks?
Yeah, it would have been better if the sharks. That's the immediate answer.
Okay.
Yes, sharks with chainsaws would have propelled this to a whole nother.
Shark
no, I mean, it would have ruined it probably. But this film to me, it needed to be one or the other, and it became too much.
Okay.
And it went ridiculously bad because of what they were trying to say and do. And I was like, why are you going there? I do want to follow up with this though. I want to try to. Yeah. After you've seen it.
I'm going to talk about this when I see it. I'm going to talk about it.
I do want to do like a part 2, so we can call this like the part 1. Once you've had a chance to see it, and we can talk about it again, whether it's a week from now or a month from now or a year from now. We're like a year from now, part 2 of our review of Book of Henry, and just get your thoughts though.
Yeah. No, that's That's it. And that's kind of what I've been reading from critics. You know? That's what I've been saying. That's pretty. But I did look at that split in the audience score and the critic score. I was like, I feel like I might be more on the other side, but we'll see. Yeah. So I think that's what, having a part 2 would be beneficial.
As a fan, it'll be interested to see the fan perspective on that film. As a critic, I'm just like, I'm flabbergasted about the decisions that they made. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So cool. So we're going to go ahead and end things on the podcast then. We want to give you a couple reminders of ways to get connected before we do sign off. And that can be, you can find us then on our website, which is realreviewmedia.com. You can check us out there, sign up for our newsletter. Then additionally, we have our Facebook, which is facebook.com/realreviewmedia. And we'd love to connect with you on there, as well as our Instagram and Twitter, which are both @realreviewmedia. And we'd love to hear thoughts on any of these films. Maybe you have more of a different sided view on the Book of Henry that you would like to share with us, and tell us maybe why you thought it was such a good film.
Such
an incredible film. Yeah. So you can shoot us an email, which is realreviewmedia@gmail.com, and let us know about that. I will say, I went and saw this movie with 2 other people.
Sharks?
And they both no sharks, thankfully. I don't know any sharks personally.
Flying scorpions.
Although that would be fun to have a friend shark. But they both disliked the movie as well, but they didn't anywhere nearly dislike it as much as me.
Oh.
They were like, it's not good, but I'm like, I was angered. I was walking out ready to punch like a screen.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, sorry. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Cool. So, anything further than Matt before we end?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, then it's been real.
It's been real.